Hello and welcome to another edition of Santos on Sports. I am Paul Santos. Hope to be joined by Chris shortly. Welcome into our show. We always enjoy chatting with you on this podcast. The first thing I'd like to do is thank our sponsors, Scotty's Pub, which is located in Fall River at 202 Pleasant Street. Citywide glass with 3 locations to serve you in both Dartmouth and Fall River and also Taunton. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis and pickleball. And a good friend of mine and a great attorney, John Seed. He has his law office in New Bedford, 156 8th Street, and you can check out his website at johnseedlaw.com. All right, we have a great show lined up for you tonight, and we have a very interesting question. Our first question is, who do you think is going to be in the Super Bowl this year, right? I mean, there are some teams at the top of the power rankings that are kind of jockeying for position. Do you have an opinion on who you think is going to be in there? I know it's not the Patriots. We already know it's not the Patriots, but who do you think it's going to be? I think Ben from Dartmouth might have an idea. Hey, Ben.
What's going on, Paul? How are you guys doing tonight?
Yeah, good. Thank you for calling. Enjoyed working the Dartmouth playoff game with you on Dartmouth Community Media last week.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a great time, although it was not the outcome Dartmouth wanted, but
No.
I had a great time, Paul.
Yeah, it was a great game. Now, you see the question that we have there. Who do you think is going to be in the Super Bowl? I know we're only about halfway, maybe a little more than halfway through the season, but a lot of people are kind of looking ahead and saying, I don't know, I kind of like this team. I think that team's dangerous. Maybe it's this team's year. I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Well, if you look down the stretch and you saw of last Sunday's game, I felt like, Kansas City is not my favorite to go to the Super Bowl. And I'm not going to be biased when I say this. I'm not saying because I don't like Kansas City or whatnot. Well, here's the thing, though. I feel like Kansas City is not a well-developed team. I think they need good receivers. I know they have DeAndre Hopkins and whatnot, but they need, a good receiver like T. Higgins. Then I would say they're a Super Bowl team. As of right now, I feel like the team that might actually go to the Super Bowl, teams actually, would be the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions.
Well, I'm looking at the power rankings, and I've been kind of keeping track on what the experts say, and the Bills and the Lions are right up there. I think the Lions are number 1 in the power rankings.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Bills, they just defeated Kansas City the other night. They look like this could be their year. You know what I mean? Like they've come up short so many times. So that's what you're thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking that way because, last season we all seen both teams sadly got eliminated from the playoffs by 2 great teams in their each respective conferences, and they played in the Super Bowl last year. And this year we could see potentially the Detroit Lions making their first Super Bowl appearance and Buffalo going to the Super Bowl this year, because I feel like Buffalo has such a team. I feel like Josh Allen is such a great leader and such a great quarterback. He's very slippery. Like I told you before, during our game on Friday, I was saying, Jackson Hart's a little bit about Josh Allen. He's very slippery. No one can catch up to him. And he put on a show on Sunday night. And along with that, you got to go look at Jared Goff. Jared Goff is pretty impressive as well. And you got to give credit where credit is due to his receivers like Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. And also, you want to give credit to the tight end, Sam Laporta, and their running back, David Montgomery, this season, along with Jahmyr Gibbs, who's just completely making that team a complete powerhouse.
Well, you're talking about the Bills and the Lions. Let's just talk about the Bills for a second. You mentioned Josh Allen. What a fantastic play he made in the end of that game. The way he kind of ducked out of all that traffic and with the clutch, right, in the clutch with all the chips on the table. I mean, he came through and, hey, that year that the Chiefs beat him when, Mahomes had 13 seconds, people forget that he scored a big touchdown right before that. You know what I mean? So it's not like he doesn't come through in the clutch. He does,
Of course. I feel like, I want to give credit where credit is due to the defense, because that was one of the best offenses in the NFL. And the Bills defense allowed 2 picks on Patrick Mahomes, which is pretty impressive. Bills fans should be happy about this win because, you just knocked off the best team in the NFL after winning the Super Bowl. And, there's some good things that's going to be coming along the way. I felt like, last year they had Stephon Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like he was just being like their diva king, and that's why they were not like leading them past the AFC Championship.
All right, hang on the line, Ben, because Chris Santos has just joined us, and I wanted to get Chris up to speed on what your thoughts are on the question of the day: who's going to be in the Super Bowl? But hey, Chris, how are you?
Good, Paul. How are you? Sorry for the lateness. Had some misfortunes, but I'm here, ready to go. And Super Bowl, you're halfway through. People are starting to see the picture, the writing on the wall in the AFC and the NFC. I think it's a good topic to try to get an idea of what people are thinking out there, and who's going to make a charge and who's going to make a run here down the stretch.
All right, so Ben has the Bills and the Lions in the Super Bowl. What do you think about that?
Okay, well, no, in the NFC right now, you'd have to think that that's the way people are going to go. The Lions seem to be the team to beat. A lot of things are going their way, sneaking out wins, finding a way to be better than opponents, and then really blowing out some opponents, Paul, when you have teams who are not playing good. And that kind of distinguishes to me sometimes really good football teams. When you play teams that are not that good and you really stick it to them. And Detroit's been doing that to a few teams. So I'm kind of leaning toward Detroit in that situation too. But again, they're still the Detroit Lions. So I'm not stuck on them just yet.
Right. Well, that's kind of how I feel about the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills just defeated the Chiefs the other night, and Ben was talking about that. That was a big win. Josh Allen, what a great play he made. He seems to be a guy that's coming through in the clutch, and he does have that it factor and all that. But in the playoffs, things have not always gone so well for Buffalo. So if I had to make a prediction right now, my prediction is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go with the Lions and the Chiefs. Now, I know that's going to make my Patriot fans happy, but I think that Buffalo might be a little bit more talented than the Chiefs, but the Chiefs have that little thing about them that you get in the playoffs, and I don't know, you get Andy Reid, and they come up with a game plan. I still think they're the team to beat.
Yeah, I can see why, but there's a lot of people out there, and even myself. I'm not stuck on the Chiefs this year for some reason.
Right, that's what Ben said.
I know they have Mahomes. I don't think Kelsey's having a great year. Their running game has been banged up, and Pacheco's trying to come back. I don't think they have the weapons on the outside that they've had in the past. Their defense has been, pretty good against the run. A little shaky with, the defense on the secondary part. But I'm not stuck on the Chiefs to make it this year. I think that their time is running thin a little bit, and I don't think they will get there.
All right, so who do you have in the Super Bowl if you had to predict right now?
I know they didn't play good the other day. I still think this team, for some reason, may show up in the playoffs. I don't know why, but the AFC, I'm liking the Baltimore Ravens.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I think.
All right.
I think it's their turn to make a little bit more of a move. I don't know when that's going to be. I'm hoping it's down the stretch now when they really start to take off. I didn't like the way they played against Pittsburgh, even though it was close. It was the offense that kind of did not show up the way I thought they were going to, because I thought that was a big game. But I still think the Ravens have a lot of talent. They got Henry in the backfield. They got some decent wide receivers. They picked up Deontay Johnson, who's just starting to get it. They got two good tight ends. And right now for them, it's that defense that's got to get back to. We've seen some good Ravens defense, and I think they'll be fine. So,
okay. How about the NFC?
I think they're going to get there.
NFC? Who do you got in the NFC?
Well, that one's a little bit more of a toss-up. Like I said, the Lions, to me, yeah, they could be, but it's still Detroit. They find a way to get there and then can't put it over the edge. So I'm not sure with them yet. I'm kind of liking Saquon Barkley. I'm kind of liking Jalen Hurts. I'm kind of liking A.J. Brown, and I'm liking Devontae Smith and what
Eagles.
that team's bringing to the table. So I'm looking at a Ravens-Eagles. It hurts me to say it because I'm not an Eagle fan. Can't stand them, actually. But right now, that looks like, to me, if their defense shapes up the team that could really do some damage in the NFC.
Well, the Eagles are dangerous. There's no question about it. I agree with you 100%. What do you think, Ben?
Well, here's the thing. To be honest with you, what Chris said about like the Ravens is though Deontay Johnson already has 6 catches this season. But like I think he only has a couple of yards. This is with the Ravens, but I don't know. He's just trying to catch his rhythm at the moment in time, like Chris just said, and I agree with that. If this is going to be a Ravens-Eagles Super Bowl, I feel like it will be more on the ground. And, most fans are not going to really be entertained with that. I agree. It should be like the Eagles are such a toss-up, too, because they're such a dangerous team, offense and defense as well. They got good receivers. They have a good running back in Saquon Barkley. And I'm not full on their head coach. I feel like Nick Sirianni doesn't coach offense and defense as well. I just feel like he's just a cheerleader on the sidelines. So,
all right, Ben. Well, we're going to go to another caller, but before we do, what did you think about the firing of Montgomery?
The firing of Montgomery, it was supposed to happen. I'm glad it happened because I don't know why. What's his name? Don Sweeney waited so long. They should have fired him after that playoff game against Florida. I don't like the start that we've started so far, and now. I feel like Don Sweeney should have just been gone years ago, but a job had to be done, and
Ben's got the axe out, ready to go here. Get rid of the general manager, get rid of the coach.
Yeah, I would have gotten rid of everybody if I was the owner of the Bruins. So.
All right, Ben. Hey, thanks a lot for the call. We always enjoy it.
All right, thank you, Paul. See you guys.
Well, while we can, Chris, let's go to the next caller. That's Nelson from Fall River. Hey, Nelson.
What's up, guys?
What's going on?
Nelson, how we doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. What do you think about our question?
Well, it's certainly not going to be the Pats.
Right.
That's a no-brainer.
Aaron Rodgers ain't going to be there either.
Listen, you can pose that question on Family Feud and just ask the question: who will not make it to the Super Bowl? And the Patriots will be the number one answer.
That's a good one. I like that one. Yeah, the number one answer, the Patriots.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, what about the teams that are there now that have the best chance? Like if you had to predict right now, we got a couple of different answers here from who we've talked to so far. What do you think?
All right. So the Super Bowl champs, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt until you're proven wrong. So I'm going to have to put the Chiefs in there.
Okay.
In the Super Bowl. Now, for me, there's up to 4 teams for the NFC. It's either going to be Philly, Washington,
wow,
Detroit, or Minnesota. Out of those 4, I think you're going to see the Super Bowl matchup, in my opinion.
All right, so if you had to pick one, I got to put you down for one.
Okay. For me, God, this is
it's
tough.
that.
Washington. That quarterback, he's playing lights out. But for me, I have to go with Detroit. I think Detroit needs to win one. They got to win one. So for me, it's Chiefs and Detroit.
Okay, that's what I had actually.
Yes.
Well, Chris, you mentioned.
Hold on, Paul. Let me throw in Nelson. Do we understand how difficult it is to win back-to-back Super Bowls? I mean, it really doesn't happen often. Is that correct?
It doesn't happen often, but it does.
Right.
It can be.
Can you actually see a three-peat? Can you see the Chiefs winning 3 in a row?
Oh, but this is just to be in the Super Bowl doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win it.
Well, I understand, but to even be there, but I mean, almost a chance to win it. I'm having a tough time seeing that happen.
Well, here's the thing. Last year, I think just recently, Mahomes was just on one leg practically, and he won the damn thing with that team, and they were counted out again, and they proved everyone wrong. For some reason, I just feel that the Chiefs, even though they lost, when you get fuel after a loss, it emboldens them. And since they have that championship mentality, I really believe they'll squeak it out. And that head coach that they have, He's a genius, and they just seem to find a way to win when it matters.
I do think,
we
Chris,
will
that it's good that they lost the game during the regular season. I think the pressure of going in undefeated.
That's a whole different ballgame, but absolutely, it kind of relieves some tension. But I also think Detroit and I think Buffalo, they're just two teams, Paul, that are snake bitten. That's just how they are. Their franchises have been tough. And it's been with Jim Kelly and all what he's been through. It's back to the day with Barry Sanders and what he went through with Detroit. And for some reason, those two teams, one in the AFC, one in the NFC, are the most snake-bitten organizations out there. For one of them to pull this off would be really, really big for their organization and city and fans if Detroit or Buffalo can finally win something, because it's been really disheartening for those two franchises.
Hey, Nelson, what do you think of Drake May?
I
think he's looking pretty good.
Well, I mean, if you like, if you like somebody who just, who can't even play, he wants to throw down the field and hits an interception to lose the game. I mean, listen, I want to say two things. I want to give credit to New York football teams. That is where undefeated streaks go to die. Remember, the 98, who did the Broncos lose to when Elway was around? They lost to the Giants. The Patriots, when they were undefeated, who did they lose to? To the Giants. Eli. And I'm going to get to him at the end.
Come on, this is all ancient history.
Oh, no, hold on. And now, Kansas City, who did they lose to? Buffalo, another one. Yeah. You see a pattern here. But here's something else. Eli Manning is about to beat Tom Brady again. Less Super Bowl rings and quite possibly getting into the Hall of Fame.
Well,
he beats him again. He's on the verge. He has Brady's number.
What do you mean he's beating him again? What do you mean?
He might get into the Hall of Fame. He's a semifinalist.
Right.
He's going to get into the Hall of Fame before Brady, is what he's saying, Paul.
Right. Well, because Brady hasn't been out of the game long enough.
Less rings, but Eli is going to say, listen, less rings down here.
Eli Manning's the greatest quarterback of all time. He's 2-0 against Brady.
Oh, it's
great.
Oh. So it's going to be interesting. But the last thing I'll say is I really hope Juan Soto comes to the Pinstripes. New York loves him. He loves New York. But if he ends up in a Dodger uniform, the Dodgers, they're going to be even more dangerous than what they are right now.
The Red Sox are talking to him.
Oh, please. Then he's not going there. He better not go there. He better not go there.
It's about time the Red Sox started spending some money, for God's sakes. They haven't spent money in a long time,
Of all places, please, Soto, do not go to that team. It will break my heart.
Well, we saw what happened to the Yankees in the World Series. They gave the Dodgers 6 outs in 1 inning. Did you see that? That was really something, Huh?
Guys, I really believe in my heart, and I'll end with this. In my heart, game 1, the Yankees proved that they could hang with that team. But when he hit that home run at the end, it was a gut punch. But
I got to tell you, I was watching that game with a friend of mine down in Dallas who's a big Yankee fan. And, oh, my God, me and his brother, we were falling off the couch laughing when he hit that grand slam because that was a big moment. That was a very exciting game, a very exciting finish.
You know, and the thing is, that reliever, he hasn't, at that time, he didn't pitch like in over 30-something days.
Mm-hmm.
Who the hell would do such a thing?
Mm.
So, there was a lot of miscues, but I hope the Yankees can retool and do what they got to do. And hopefully, if it's a rematch between those two teams, minus those, those mistakes, we could possibly have a good World Series. But if they get there, but Soto, he better not go.
All right, I don't know if you have do you have Netflix by any chance? You may not, because I don't know. Some people have it, some people don't.
I am a Netflix subscriber for life.
All right. So go to Netflix and watch The Comeback.
Oh, you mean the comeback fluke? Yeah,
The comeback of 2004. It was great. I watched
please.
it. My wife and I watched it last week. It was great. It was great.
Don't give me a stomach virus.
Oh, I felt so good watching that. It was great. Hey, Nelson, thanks very much. Talk to you soon.
You guys have a great night.
All right. Yeah, the comeback of the 2004 little 3-part series there on Netflix. I generally don't usually watch things like that because I remember it and I've seen the whole thing with the bloody sock and the thing, but just watching it again, it was just kind of amazing what the odds were of pulling that off, and it was obviously a great moment. I'm glad I stayed up and watched all those games until midnight.
I'm reading a little press release here that Soto declines qualifying offer from the Yankees.
Ooh.
So, I'm already hearing some thoughts about Soto not being a Yankee. But I'll have to agree with Nelson on this one. I really hope he doesn't go to the Dodgers and it's out there with Betts and all these guys. You just kind of scratch your head and say, where does this money come from and how do they pay all these guys? It's really weird, but I'd like to see him somewhere else. And, and your organization, Paul, as much as mine, is always trying to find a way to land one of these big studs. We don't usually do it that way. You do it more than than my club does. So I'll be curious to see what the Orioles do and even what your Red Sox do to try to compete and to stay up with the Yankees.
All right. If you'd like to get into the discussion and answer the question of the day, what do you think is the favorites to get to the Super Bowl? Season halfway over, so we're kind of looking ahead. I know it's a little early to make predictions, but just for the fun of it, give us a call here at 774-218-3393. You can also type in the comments section. And David Mead, we appreciate you jumping in with your comments tonight. It's terrific. Yep. He's mentioning Nelson from Fall River, and he also says the Commanders are kind of like that dark horse. They would be kind of like the underdog, kind of like the Cinderella team, kind of like we saw with the Bengals a couple of years ago. Is it possible for that rookie quarterback and what they have there to make it to the Super Bowl?
I don't think so yet. I'm not stuck on that one. He thinks the Eagles are a dangerous team. I kind of agree with him there.
Yes, I agree with him there.
The Commanders, they got some talent going their way, and they're getting better. I don't know if a rookie's going to be able to do it right now. I'm going to say no for this year, but keep an eye on the Commanders if Daniels continues the way he's going. As for his first comment, Paul, I had no interest whatsoever in watching Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I say this, I am a 56-year-old man, not 58. And I've played against 25-year-old men in another sport. And I struggle to keep up with them to a point where when I'm at my best limit and they're at their best limit, they are a little bit more dominant fashion than me. And in the world of boxing, I understand one punch can, knock anybody out. I get all that. But you're talking about a man at 58 trying to move around a ring and stabilize himself to be fast enough to hit a 27-year-old. And I just wouldn't see it happening. I did not think. I just thought it was kind of a show like WWE, kind of scripted. One's making 40 million, one's making 20 million, and people want to watch this stuff. So I'm sorry, David. I was not a big fan of it. So I didn't watch, 1 second of it, and kind of probably went the way I thought it was going to go. Probably just, hang in there without getting knocked out and just go for rounds so people can watch something and say, this is what Mike Tyson did. So that's how I felt with that one, David. How about you, Paul? You see that one?
Yeah, no, I didn't. And I'm going to tell you a little quick story about that. But before I do, the sport that you're referring to as a 56-year-old man trying to run around, you're talking about on the tennis court?
Yes.
You play those 27, 28-year-olds and you just don't quite have what you had a few years ago. Is that what we're saying?
That is correct. Some of my reflexes is not as fast. They hit the ball obviously with a little bit more pace now, which gives me a little bit more trouble to pick up and to kind of handle. I can hang around and stick around, but I don't have much of a chance in certain situations. There are other times that I do have chances and make the best of it. But I know when I kind of shy away from that and say, no, thanks. I don't see myself doing that. Never mind my recovery after when it's all done.
Well, I'm impressed that you even compete against somebody that young. I mean, I think that's pretty commendable.
I mean, and I'm coaching in college, and there's times that some people don't make it to practice, and I got to step in and fill in, which I do, which is fine. And then, we have some competition, and coach says, "You willing to accept this little competition?" I just nod my head and say, "Yeah, okay, I'll take it on today." But I kind of realize where my limitations are. I have my moments of glory, and then I have my moments of, boy, I don't think I belong out here right at this particular time.
All right, so Mike Tyson obviously faced the same thing, and of course, probably even worse in a ring, because now you're talking about, throwing punches and taking punches, which is even, obviously more severe than on the tennis court or something like that. But I agree with you. We actually did the Dartmouth football game, so I got home and I'm like, all right, it's early enough. I'll put this on. It was like 10 o'clock or something, and it's like, okay, there's an undercard, then there's another undercard, there's another undercard, then it's 11 o'clock, then they're talking with each other, and then the stream started getting fuzzy, and then I'm like, hey, I'm not going to wait up all night for this. I put it on for the curiosity factor. That's the only reason why I put it on. People were talking about it, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll put it on as just, a way to see the spectacle. But they dragged it out so long. I mean, look, things going on all night. Then they had two women fighting. Hey, I don't care. That's fine too. But, to me, it was just like, it just dragged on and on and on. And then when the fight finally happened, I guess people are saying that it was a little bit of an anticlimactic situation. So I don't know. I put it on for the spectacle of it. I put it on for the curiosity of it. But then I didn't want to wait around. So then I was out.
Yeah. Again, I look at it as if the first 30 seconds to 45 seconds, something really happens, that's when it's going to happen for Tyson, because he's actually fresh. After that, he's going to be exhausted and running around, and people say, well, look at the shape he's in and all that. It's a lot different when you get to your 50s and you talk about the shape you're in and how it really works. So I didn't expect much from it, and I just thought it was a fiasco that they're making all this money for this, and people want to watch it. So, hey, whoever did, good for you. It just wasn't my cup of tea. So I had no interest at all.
All right. If you'd like to make a comment on any of these topics, the question of the day, halfway through the NFL season, who do you like to make the Super Bowl? Is Buffalo going to break through this year? Is Detroit going to break through this year? Or are we going to see the Chiefs again, or maybe the Eagles, or maybe there'll be a surprise team like the Commanders or Minnesota or some team like that? We'll see. I think Chris had the Eagles in there, and the Ravens in the AFC. Chris seems to think is dangerous. So what do you think? Give us a call, 774-218-3393. You can also type in the comment line. We would appreciate it. Now, I'll have Chris on the line. I was looking at tickets for the Bruins, and I'm like, maybe my son and I can go see the Bruins, in the next few weeks. And so what game do I pick? I picked the game after Thanksgiving against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Ooh.
And so I'm thinking, all right, wait a minute, that's Chris Santos' team. So I don't know.
Yes.
My record of going to games and having the team that I'm rooting for win is not that great. But, I was thinking to myself, gee, if they're going to do something with Montgomery, I hope they do it between now and then, because this is going on too long. And I got to tell you, I think Montgomery's been fine. He's put together a couple of great regular seasons. A puck then bounced their way in the playoffs. Maybe I think they don't play defensive enough in the playoffs. Okay, whatever. But for whatever reason, he lost them, even if it's not his fault. You know what I mean? Like sometimes a coach just loses the team, even if it's not his fault. And it's not a question of whether it's his fault or not. It's the question of, can we go forward with in this particular situation? And I think that was the issue. So I think they had to do it. What do you think?
Claude Julien, Butch Cassidy, and now Mr. Montgomery. Well, let me tell you about the first two. They looked pretty good, and they led them teams to some good championships and some good winning seasons, just as much as what Montgomery has done. And so every time something goes bad, who gets the scapegoat? It's the head coach.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying that means Neely should go or Sweeney should go, or, they're not getting to the players the way they could get to the players. Well, they made the switch when Cassidy supposedly couldn't get to the players. And so they made the move to Montgomery. Now Montgomery can't get to the players. And so let's make another move. I get when you're an organization, Paul, that is top city, a top sports-minded place, as much as the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Celtics, and the Bruins. And so when it's not starting well and it's not off to a good start as the Bruins were, now you sit back and say, well, I've lost command of the team. This is a losing way. Someone's got to change it for our fans. And I believe Sweeney mentioned that today. We need to make some changes for our fans in our organization, and this is what we're doing. So it was quite interesting, but I'm not surprised that it happened because they've done it twice now, as I said, with Claude and Butch. And so here we are now with this one here. So, yeah, I suspected it was going to happen. I think you called it last time we talked and said the Bruins are on the cusp of making some moves. I just don't know if it's upper echelon that need to go before someone else go, or a little boot in the butt for the players because they're just getting a little, a little too big for their britches kind of a thing. It's tough, but someone had to pay for it, and it was Montgomery.
All right, Ryan is in Rochester. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, guys, how's it going?
Oh, pretty
Ryan,
good, pretty
what's
good. There's so much going on in the world of sports. It's crazy.
I know, right? And I'm trying something a little different. I'm calling from the car tonight. You hear me okay over there?
Oh, Ryan's in a car. Ryan's in a car. That's okay.
Yeah, but are you guys hearing me okay?
Yeah, you're fine. Yes.
All right, cool. So, kind of like what you guys were just talking about before, Jim Montgomery being fired, not surprising at all. Like I've told you multiple times, I still didn't like how they did Bruce Cassidy beforehand. So I'm still of the mentality like before then. Like sure, maybe the coach's messaging got stale after a while, but I think that's partly that's partly on the players, and then two, it's on the upper management. Namely Don Sweeney and Cam Neely, who for bringing these types of guys in who just aren't taking the message at all. So I think what I'm hoping is, now that this is kind of done early in the season, as opposed to Bruce Cassidy's firing was at the very end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Got Joe Sacco in there as like an interim head coach now. Now it kind of falls on to said upper management. Can they make roster changes? Can they do anything between them and the coach and the new coaches to kind of light a spark into the team? It's going to be a big test, and hopefully that hopefully this time there's actually some accountability held toward these two individuals, because honestly, I'm kind of sick of guys getting scapegoated for these two.
Ryan, Ryan and Paul, do you see an accountability here on the goaltender Swayman waiting as long as he has, coming in late? And I watched him the other night, and I'll tell you, the first two goals were as soft as they could be. And he's let some goals in right now that I sit back and say, well, he just doesn't look sharp. And I'm wondering, by being this late, worrying about the contract and getting into camp right at the end, and then playing some, not playing some, and then, okay, well, usually I want to get him on a streak. They really haven't done much of that either. But I think that's a big pot to go along with some of these players needing a little boot in the butt to get going, like a Pastrnak and even Marchand and a couple of the other guys. So I thought Swayman's situation was really big.
Oh, Swayman has been totally annoying. I mean, this guy thinks he's the second coming of Dominic Hasek, because he had a hot playoff. You know what I mean? This guy's been alternating the last 2 years. He's been alternating. And so he goes into an arbitration. Hey, I'm an attorney, right? When you're in an arbitration, you're representing one side, representing the other side. They got to bring out your weaknesses. This is the reason why we think, and the other side brings out the strengths. You go back and forth, but you can't get all like mushy about it. It's the Bruins' job to bring out the weaknesses. They did it. So we always had these hurt feelings and all this. Now he's over there holding out for this ridiculous amount of money, which I think was outrageous. Some people said they should have traded him. I got to tell you, I almost got to that point, like, hey, just trade this guy's ass, maybe you can get some other help and put the other guy in, I don't know. But he's been totally annoying, totally irritating. And then finally, when he comes in, he falls on his face. I mean, he's been getting blown out 7-2, 6-2. Some of the goals aren't his fault, but as you said, some of them have been soft as can be. So I got to tell you, we're going to ask Ryan. I mean, I'm really frustrated with Swayman.
I 1000% agree. And not to cross sports or anything, but a kind of a comparable situation in the NFL, at least, is to me, it's kind of similar to the Brandon Ayuk situation. He held out all that time in camp, all that time in mini camp, and not that they play anybody in the 49ers play anyone in the preseason anyway, but all this chirping, all of this holding out for ultimately them to cave on the big contract. He comes out and looks like crap for the first 2 weeks, then he gets injured. With Swayman, I think it's the same thing. All the chirping on the podcast and stuff. I don't think he held out as much. I think he did get some practice time in, but clearly wasn't as focused as he should have been because by the time that he does ultimately get that money, and thank God they didn't cave and give him like $10 million like he reportedly wanted. By the time he gets in, he's not fully got his skates under him, and he looks like hot garbage too. And I'm kind of with you. I was almost at a point where I was like, okay, they probably should have just kept Linus Olmark at $5 million as opposed to extending this guy to freaking $8 million when Corpusalo, who last year was statistically like one of the worst goaltenders in the league, he honestly looks better.
Well, wait a minute now. This is what a lot of people wanted, though, Ryan. A lot of people wanted and said, "Oh yeah, go get rid of Olmark, get what you can for him, because this is the man. This is our guy. Swayman's the dude. You got to put him in. He's our playoff goalie. He's hot. He's going to be ready for this season and all that." But, as Paul said, our head started to swell a little bit, and we got in the camp a little bit late because we were worrying about the contract and so forth. But a lot of people wanted this to happen and said, Swayman's our guy. So, it is what it is now, and they're stuck with him because they're not going against that contract the way it is. But he definitely needs to step up his game in what I'm seeing.
Olmark, unfortunately, was kind of a flop in the playoffs a couple of times, when they were trying the alternating goalie thing. He played great, but then in the playoffs, Swayman did basically stand on his head last year, but it was only that one time. That's the only time I've ever seen that. Just got hot at the right time. He was playing fantastic goal and everything else. So, I do like him a little bit better than Olmark, but they should have worked the deal out with him before they traded Olmark, right? That should have been the way the thing should have been handled. You know what I mean? That way you get rid of Olmark, and now basically you're at the mercy of Swayman as far as this contract. And by the way, before I let Ryan pick up, the thing that irritates me too is when you hear this guy talking, right? He's saying, well, I took this class on, business and everything. And, I really know how to do this. And oh, by the way, I'm setting the goalie market for all the other goalies in the league. This isn't just for me, and by the way, I'm fighting for my family here. Fighting for your family. You make more in a half an hour than most people make in a year. Like, well, what the hell are you talking about? You fighting for your family. I don't want to hear that crap,
Yeah, that was just him completely talking out of his ass there. Like, I don't. The fact that if this isn't just for me, when you're asking for $10 million a year, you're thinking of yourself there. Trying to reset the goalie market, you're thinking of yourself there. Don't pull it. You're not pulling the clouds over our eyes with that one. Enough with that already.
Yeah, it was a little annoying.
Ryan, let's get back to the nitty gritty now. Let's say the playoffs started. It's a chance to win the Super Bowl. It's halfway through the season. Who you got right now making it from the AFC and who you got making it for the NFC and why on each team?
So definitively this time around, I have the Detroit Lions making it to the NFC. Reason being, not just the fact that they added some really good pieces. I think situationally on the defensive side of the ball, they've gotten immensely better, especially in the secondary. Because you look at the NFC Championship game last year, they were out I think it was 21-24-7 at halftime, and then they just let the 49ers come rolling on back because they're just giving up big plays down the field. I think they're tougher against the run. I think Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, those are two big additions at corner. So I think their secondary's gotten better, and they've gotten some massive turnovers from those guys too. And then on the offensive side, I think situationally to be able to overcome Jared Goff throwing 5 interceptions and still winning a game against a pretty good Houston Texans team, that seems like okay. This team feels like I feel like this team gets it now. And on the AFC side, it's obvious to go with the Chiefs. despite their own issues on the offensive side of the ball. But I'm going to say the Buffalo Bills, and that's not just because they just beat the Chiefs, but I'm thinking because of the fact that with Diggs out, it feels like Josh is making more of a concerted effort to spread the ball around to guys like they just got Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman has been coming on as of late, and they between Ray Davis and James Cook, they got a pretty good running game. So I'm making the bold prediction that Buffalo finally breaks the mold and they get there.
Wow, there you go, there, Paul.
Yeah,
Lions in Buffalo.
I got to tell you, Josh Allen, right? He's getting better all the time. And the thing is, when you're a defense and you're trying to do something with him, and he goes back, he can throw the ball. He's very accurate. He looks down the field. But then if the play breaks down, you just can't get this guy. You chase him all around. You can't get him. And, Mahomes can run too. And Mahomes might be the best quarterback in the league. But I got to tell you, and I'm predicting the Chiefs to make it again. That's what I put down. I had to pick one or the other.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be surprised. The Bills would certainly not surprise me. But the thing is, Josh Allen is bigger and stronger than Mahomes. So then when he does run the ball, I mean, he's like a truck. I mean, he's not going to do anything stupid to get hurt. But, if he needs that first down in the AFC Championship game, you're not going to be able to get this guy down. I mean, he's so dangerous. And I'm impressed with him, I have to say.
Yeah, man, you look at this past game against Kansas City. It's a 4th and 2. They're making the big gamble. They're going for it. Not only does he get the first down, he runs through like 2 or 3 different guys who, now granted there was some poor tackling attempts, but he just ran over the guys and just said, like, screw it, I'm scoring. And and in passing situations too, you got guys who are right on him. They're just slipping right off him because like you said, you can't get him down. Guys just bouncing off of him. The guy's just a beast.
He has this look on his face like, you know what? We've lost too many times in a close game. I don't know. I look at his face and I'm like, this guy, he's going to be tough to beat.
I think he can. Yeah. I think Cook can in the backfield. Kincaid's solid as a tight end. I just need them to see who can step up on the outside to help Josh Allen. Can this Keon Coleman be a good player? Can Shakir be a good player? They're going to need something, Ryan, besides Kincaid and Cook in the back to really help out Josh. Because if not, Josh could find himself getting hurt too because he takes off an awful lot too. So they need outside help. And if he gets it, I think they could be dangerous. But I don't think they're there yet with the outside receivers.
All right. Before we let you go, Ryan, what do you think about your Patriots quarterback?
He just looks better every week. Like, I was nervous, one, because they ended up caving and starting him, but two, because he was just, considered this, really raw prospect coming out of the draft. He might need a year or two to develop. He's coming in and like he's overcoming a lot. Like his footwork looks a lot better. Some of the decision making is still needs some work. Because there's some of those interceptions are kind of egregious. But I think he's running Van Pelt's offense well. Who as I told you multiple times, I think he's getting way too much flack.
Oh, I agree with you
right now. But he looks like he understands the offense. He's making good checks to the line. He's trying to get guys motion in to get the block correctly. And, he just I hate to say this right off the top, but he looks like a bit of a vet out there. And to be able to do that at only 22 years old, it's got me thinking bright about the future. But here's the caveat: they need to smarten up as an organization and surround the guy, receivers, offensive linemen, because like I told you multiple times, the one thing they've got going right now, actually I should say one of the two things they've got going, it's the quarterback and the cornerback and Christian Gonzalez. Everything else, dog water.
Oh, some of those wide receivers, they were missing balls and dropping balls. Balls were going right through their hands. I mean, it was not good. But I want to ask Chris something because we're always joking around about he's the X's and O's guy, and I'm kind of like the eyeball test guy. I just kind of like, I'm looking at Drake May, right? And I'm like, wow, he does look like a veteran out there. If you put the game on and you didn't know anything about the game and you just threw the game on and you didn't know who that was, you'd be like, who's this guy? This guy looks like he's been out there for 10 years. And compared to Mac Jones, there's no comparison. This guy, he just looks the part. He feels the part. He throws the ball. He moves around in the pocket, takes a few chances running, although I don't think he did it this last game. And I don't want to get too crazy here because Chris is going to be, you Patriot fans, you guys are getting delirious too early.
No,
but
no.
I like what I see. What do you think, Chris?
No, and Ryan will probably tell you, and I'm going to tell you, skills aside, I like the poise, I like the leadership, and I like the demeanor. Those three things stick to a coach. Those three things stick in a huddle, and guys say, we can play for this guy. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've seen, the growth right now so far from him than what I've seen in the guys in the past, because he looks poised, he looks calm with the demeanor, and and he just seems like he's got good leadership and a head on his shoulders. So that's what I've seen, not skills aside. I mean, the arm, the running and all that stuff, I'm not worrying about that. But the other three intangibles, which I think are huge for a quarterback, I'm starting to see from day one till now.
And I like the fact that he'll take blame. I mean, it might be a minor thing, but something went wrong or whatever. He says, "Hey, that's on me. I should have done this. I should have done that. I'll take the, I should have done this and that, And then he called that meeting of the offense and said, "Hey, we're not doing what we should in practice here in the offense. We got to win. These situations comes up during the game, and we have to be able to handle that." So you're right. The leadership stuff, and I don't know, just the way he looks out there. I think he looks good out there, and I just wish the Patriots could surround him with some talent.
Ryan, before you go, and Paul to you, I know, Ryan, you lost a tough one in the playoffs. I give Old Colony credit. They did what they needed to do. Paul, Dartmouth got beat, in their game with Milton. But I had a game the other night, and I want you to remember this name, Massimo Lagrasso. This kid kicked an over 50-yard field goal for Linfield against Fairhaven, straight down the middle. And I mean, as straight dead could be, it would have went for 60. That's how long of a leg he had. Kicked it at Fairhaven on the turf. It went through, but there was a penalty on the play, so they scratched it after that. And then he went for a 42-yarder. Would have went from 60 again. He just pulled it left. It went to overtime, and they ended up losing. But Massimo Lagrasso, over 50 yards, Ryan, in high school kicker. Pretty impressive.
I've never seen anything like that. Did you work that game, Chris? Did you call that game, or did you just?
I called that game with Ed Pereira on
the radio.
On the radio, yes.
Yeah, we were doing the Dartmouth game, and and the Dartmouth game, was a close game in the fourth quarter. And Ben, who called before, he was working the game with me, and he's like, "Hey, it's 28-28. It's going into overtime." I'm like, "Wow, what a great game that was!" So anyway.
and their overtime is you get the ball at the 10. You got 4 plays. Fairhaven went first and scored. They went, and you have to go for 2. There's no extra point. They went for 2 and got it. And then Linfield scored. They went for their 2. They didn't make it, so Fairhaven won. But it was the run game of Fairhaven against the spread offense, and just throw it with 4 wide receivers just out wide and gunslinging it down the field for Linfield. So it was a contrast of 2 offensives, but it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, football's a great game when you get those kind of contrasts. You get 2 different styles. Now, you had mentioned to Ryan, Old Colony, right? You had something to do with that game?
A little bit. That one I actually wasn't able to attend, but I was talking with the coaches about it after the fact.
Right.
It's tough. It's tough, but we got one more coming up on Thanksgiving. So I was at practice today. Working hard, and hopefully we can end off on a good note.
Yeah, and Dartmouth and Fairhaven, that would be a great game.
End up with Tri-County?
We end up with Tri-County. Yep, absolutely.
Tri-County. Okay,
Second time we face it in back-to-back weeks.
Yep.
And Ryan, how about the – go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, it could be another situation too, Paul, like last year, where Dartmouth plays Fairhaven, and everything's on the line for Fairhaven again if they win this week against Swampscott.
Yeah, right. I think that's going to be a great game, Dartmouth and Fairhaven, regardless. But it's almost better for Dartmouth if it's the last game of the year for Fairhaven too. You know what I mean? Because they'll be like, "Well, we got a whole guy, and we're going to be careful. They're thinking about the next game and all that kind of thing."
Yeah,
but anyway,
they didn't think about that last year when they went to Dartmouth.
There was a 42-yard field goal by a kid by the name of Grant Darmafall.
Yep.
And that was unbelievable. A 42-yard field goal won the game for Fairhaven with no time on the clock. I mean,
he's back, by the way. He was only a junior.
And the running back is there. I know that.
Well, Max is there.
Hey, Ryan, how about those Boston Celtics the other night, huh? Knocking off previously undefeated Cavaliers.
last night.
Yeah, that's a statement win right there. Like you just mentioned, undefeated, and listen. I know this is kind of like higher stakes than the normal cup game because again, it's the undefeated Cavaliers we're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good to see them step up because I feel like this is one of those games where they were kind of crater a little bit. But it's a good way to kind of step in and like okay, you're undefeated, but we're still the champs. So
the Celtics are just they are just so deep. You're trying to watch Tatum, and then you're trying to watch Brown, and then DW just puts a dagger in you. Then the guy comes off the bench, bam, he hits one. And it's just Porzingis isn't even in there. You know what I mean? So who's going to stop him in the East? I can't see anybody.
I get worried sometimes that they're going to stop themselves, Ryan.
Well,
I think sometimes they play to the level of their opponent, and we've seen that in a couple of games, and they've had a couple of losses, and you scratch your head and say, why are you losing that one? And so, it's going to be interesting to see how the Celtics handle the Celtics.
Right. Real quick, before we go, I wanted to tell Ryan a funny story there quickly. My son was working at the Garden as an usher. He left, but he went back, He was working that game. And he's kind of like Chris. He's always like saying, hey, Dad, you're criticizing Tatum too much and all that. So at the end of regulation, right, Tatum, of course, clanks one at the buzzer, right? So I make the mistake. I don't wait till the end of the game. I make the mistake of saying, there he goes again, Mr. Clank City, blah, 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 right? So then 10 minutes later, he hits that shot at the end to win the game in overtime. Oh, my God. My son's like, hey, Dad, are you still up? Are you still awake? I don't hear anything. There's crickets. I said, you sound like my buddy Chris. Oh, that was great. I was dying laughing. I'm like, oh, God, now he's going to freaking hit the shot now after I blabbed about it, But, hey, it's good to see them winning. They're so deep. I got to tell you, I'm just looking at talent-wise. Like Chris said, they could beat themselves, but I don't see anybody in the East stopping them right now. Philadelphia's not playing well. New York, they got their weaknesses, I mean, they look like a truck, coming down the road that's going to be unstoppable.
Well, and the funny part is, Ryan, I think it's teams besides the big ones who we think of. I think Cleveland, I think Orlando, and I think Indiana. The younger guns that are looking a lot better than Milwaukee, looking a lot better than Philadelphia, and looking a lot better than the Knicks. So it's the three teams that I really didn't think, but they're showing up this year so far.
All right, Ryan. Well, thank you very much for your usual nice contribution to our show, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again soon.
No problem. Thanks for having me on again, guys.
All right, Ryan in a car tonight on Santos on Sports. Well, that was a quick hour. Well, it might have been quick because Chris didn't get in there till 10 after, but it was a quick hour. And hey, how about those Dallas Cowboys the other night? What the heck is going on over there?
Well, obviously, we lost Dak for the season, and we kind of knew that was happening. We come in after that against the Texans, who finally started to get healthy again and get more pieces of the puzzle back to help out C.J. Stroud. But I'm more worried about the organization up front. So if this is time for McCarthy to go, let's get him out now. If this is time for Zimmer to go, let's get him out now. Let's start rebuilding. Let's start fresh again with some new coaching. And, not to say we're going to turn this season around, but just enough to say, hey, we got a base, we got a balance, and, we can get back to playing our kind of football. And obviously that's not going to be with Dak. So we have to figure out where we go from here, especially at the most intriguing position in football, which is the quarterback.
All right, we're up against the clock, but Phil is calling in from New Bedford. So let's say hello to Phil. How are you?
Gentlemen.
Hey, Phil.
Initial posted question, I should just get in the house.
Sure. No problem.
It's definitely going to be Kansas City. It's either going to be Philadelphia or Detroit. If Detroit stays physically healthy, it's going to come down to the NFC Championship game, and depends on who's got that home field in that level. And as far as in the East, maybe Cleveland, but they got to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm. All right, so if you really had to pick, you'd say Chiefs, and if you really had to pick the NFC, who would you say?
I got to go with my Eagles.
The Eagles, all right.
Their experience there. They've had the experience against them at that high level.
So there's a lot of people, including myself, that still say, you got to say the Chiefs until somebody beats them. I mean, they are the champions after all. I mean, Buffalo, maybe this is the year. Buffalo's probably a little bit more talented than the Chiefs, but when the chips are down and the lights are on and you got to have that big moment, somebody's got to take it away from Kansas City, and I don't think that's going to be that easy.
No, I agree. Like the other night, what Buffalo did was amazing, but again, it's regular season. It's at their home base. If they could end up going to Kansas City, I just don't see that either.
Yeah. All right, Phil. Well, thank you very much. Great to hear from you.
Sneak in. Always a pleasure, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you very much. All right.
Bye-bye.
Phil from New Bedford. Okay. So Ben had the Bills and the Lions. I had the Lions and the Chiefs. Chris has the Ravens and the Eagles. Nelson has the Chiefs and the Lions. Ryan has the Lions and the Bills. And Phil has the Chiefs and the Eagles. And David Mead typed in Washington, but we didn't get the AFC. So, it's really.
Well, he said Buffalo's going to be better this year.
All right, so Buffalo and Washington.
Yes,
okay.
He might be looking at Buffalo and probably the Eagles.
So there's certainly a cluster of teams. Buffalo, the Lions, the Chiefs, the Eagles. You had mentioned the Ravens, which is a little bit of an outside team. The Commanders. But, you have that cluster of 4 or 5 teams that everybody's focusing in on that, really are the favorites. And I got to tell you, it's far off. But, boy, those playoffs, they're going to be great. There's going to be some great games with some of the great organizations, great quarterbacks. Some of the younger quarterbacks maybe will be in there, and some of the veterans. And, can Buffalo finally get over the top? And, can Detroit finally get in there? And, can Kansas City get back in there again for the third time? All those, stories behind the stories. I mean, it's going to be a blast.
And sometimes the wild card games are better than the conference finals games, and it's pretty amazing how that goes. And you watch some crazy things happen. You watch some of these endings, you go, "Holy cow, how did that happen?" But yeah, I want to see more of the AFC because I think that's a little bit more cluster. There's a lot of teams in there that can really go at it with one another. The NFC, again, Detroit and the Eagles seem to outshine everybody else right now. And it just seems like it's just those two. So I'll be curious to see how good it looks in that AFC to see how some of them games really shape up. Can Pittsburgh turn it around with Russell Wilson? Can Houston get back into the thick of things? Just different things like that. So it's going to be fun this second half to really see how the AFC unfolds.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I agree 100%. There's a lot more like Cinderella dangerous teams floating around. Like Houston could knock off a Kansas City on any given day. Anybody can beat anybody. So it won't be easy, but
Hey, listen, Chris Bonato says Lions and Ravens Super Bowl, and he said it since the preseason. So
all right, we got another one. Lions and Ravens.
Put that down. Bonato, Chris, Lions and Ravens.
Well, yeah. Well, so
he's half of me. I said Ravens.
You had Baltimore. Well, they can be dangerous. And they've been around before. This is going to be their first rodeo. Yep. So there's a few teams that are right on the edge, trying to get over the hump. Okay, we got to run here. We want to thank our sponsors: Scotty's Pub, Citywide Glass, Lakeville Athletic Club, and attorney John Seed. I'd like to thank all those who have commented. A good question today that Chris came up with, and a lot of people called in and gave their opinion on what they thought. So I'll put this aside, and then when we get to the playoffs, we'll see how things turned out just for the fun of it.
Yeah, I figure, we're around the halfway mark. I figured it'd be a good question to get out there, and we had some good answers. But, Paul, hey, appreciate it. Sorry for the little bit of the lateness, but great show once again. Thanks, everybody out there, for either calling in or writing to us. It's always a lot of fun.
So for Chris Santos, I'm Paul Santos for Santos on Sports. Thanks again for looking in, and we'll talk to you again real soon.